We constantly get asked here at Nomad Capitalist whether the stuff that we talk about, the tax reduction, the second passports in particular, investing overseas, whether that only applies to Americans. People say, Andrew, I'm from Canada, I'm from Australia, I'm from Uzbekistan. Do I need this stuff? And the answer is yes. I'm going to tell you why in this video. Hey guys, my name is Andrew Henderson, and if you'd like to learn how Nomad Capitalist can help you and more about what it is that we do, go to nomadcapitalist.com. We've got over 2,000 pieces of free content, plus a lot of information about how we actually help people. But let's talk about whether you need some help. And I do get asked the question when it comes to things like the 5 flag theory, the idea of diversifying your assets, the idea of diversifying your citizenships, living in a tax-free country. Okay, the flag theory was something that was created decades ago, and we've adapted it here at Nomad Capitalist for the modern world. And so there's this perception. There are a couple of different perceptions. The first perception when it comes to Americans is, I am an American, someone will say, I am a U.S. citizen, you can't save any money by going offshore. Simply not true. Even after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in the U.S., you can still dramatically reduce your taxes by going offshore. A bit more involved, but you can still do it. So the myth that U.S. citizens can no longer take advantage of this stuff, absolutely false. On the other hand, people say, well, I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm from some other country where they don't tax me on my worldwide income, right? The U.S. has that distinction of being basically the only country. There are one or maybe two that are kind of doing it, kind of, sort of. But the U.S. is basically the only country that has the teeth to tax its citizens no matter where they live. There are exceptions. There are carve-outs again. But if you're a Canadian, you can just leave the country, check all the boxes appropriately, and they'll leave you alone. So do those people, do everyone except for the U.S. citizens need the stuff that we talk about? And I would say the answer is yes. There's a couple reasons. Number one is I made a video where I asked, do you need a plan A or do you need a plan B? Okay. If you're an American, if you're a U.S. person, as we call them, and you're tired of paying the high taxes, you want to go somewhere and pay zero, you want to be exactly like everyone else, then you might need a second passport as a plan A because that's going to become your new passport. You might want to get rid of the U.S. passport in order to facilitate more ease of doing business or a lower tax rate, what have you. Okay. However, there's also plan B, and that's the defensive strategy. If plan A is offensive, plan B is defensive. And so what that means is you might want to have a second passport in case something happens. You might want to have bank accounts in other countries in case something happens. And all the stuff that we talk about here is legal, okay? I am what they call the goody two-shoes of the offshore world. We like to keep things clean. So everything here is legal. You might have to fill out a few forms, reporting your bank accounts, reporting your overseas interests, your companies, whatever, but it is legal if done properly. Now, for this plan B, let's talk about the tax situation, because people say, I don't need this Nomad Capitalist stuff. I don't have the U.S. tax obligations. Well, here's the thing. Groups like the OECD are going out right now, and they're putting a lot of material out, a lot of suggestions out about how countries should put in global minimum taxes on corporations. They're putting in all kinds of new proposals just on tax everywhere, just raising tax rates. Groups like that have successfully bullied countries like Andorra into having a tax rate. Countries that didn't used to tax people at all now have taxes because they've been bullied. And so this is the crabs in the bucket theory, right? The rest of us are miserable, so let's drag the people who are able to successfully charge zero tax, let's drag them down. There will be a time in the future, I don't know if it's 5 years, 10 years, potentially longer, but I don't think so, where more countries are going to start adapting some form of U.S.-style taxation because this nomad thing is going to catch on so much, and people are going to be so mobile that they're going to have to find new ways to get revenue. I've also said before, the European Union, for example, as a bloc, could come in and say, here's our minimum tax. If you go and live in Australia, God bless you. But if you go and live in Dubai, you know what? Pay us 10% for the privilege because you have our passport. It's worked so well in the United States. Right? It's worked so well. And people say, well, why wouldn't you pay full taxes for being a U.S. citizen, even if you don't live there at all? That's what people think. So we know that politicians can convince people that they can make their citizens abroad pay taxes. So having a second passport gives you the opportunity to have an escape plan, have a plan B if and when that happens, okay? This idea that the United States is going to be the only country until the end of time that chases its citizens down, I think is simply wrong. We're entering an era of mobility. The U.S. has certainly been the most aggressive one. It's been part of their DNA since, I believe, the Civil War. But more countries can certainly come on and do it, perhaps in a more muted way, in a more of a back door, around the corner kind of way, but they could do it. The other issue that some people bring up is, well, what if you're in a place where they don't let you leave? Now, certainly there are folks like in the United States during presidential elections, oh, maybe they'll build a wall not to let you leave, the citizens. They'll build a wall to keep you in. That's possible in some countries. We've seen that happen before. Certainly you could go to another country, get some kind of visa or work permit. You could be doing a job there or whatever, and you could run into some kind of problem. And maybe that country wouldn't let you leave. And so having a second passport may or may not be helpful, but it could be just another tool in your tool chest. And so when it comes to passports, I mean, to me, there are just so many different reasons to have it. We call it citizenship insurance, and I've talked about that concept before. If you are the 7 or 8 figure or 9 or 10 that we talk to, having citizenship insurance is a good idea. You know, I hear all the time people talking about, I'm getting my auto insurance, my home insurance. People come to me and ask, Andrew, you know, where do I buy insurance for my overseas properties? Should I have an umbrella policy? You know, people have so many kinds of insurance, yet their citizenship isn't insured. They have one citizenship, and so no matter what happens in that country, whether it's taxes, unrest, civil war, you know, whatever they do to you, you're subject to it. I think it's just a good idea to be protected. I mean, you probably don't put your entire net worth in one company's stock, or your entire net worth in gold, or your entire net worth in anything. I'm a big fan of certain asset classes. No matter what I'm really into, I'm not putting all my money in any one thing. I like to be diversified, okay? And I want to be protected. And so the issue is this. We very rarely get much warning when banks or laws or really anything changes, okay? There have been times when tax laws have changed in countries where they say it's effective tomorrow, or it's effective a month from now, or you know what, it was effective a year ago, so just pay us as if the law existed a year ago because now you actually owe more money than you thought, right? Who's going to stop them? Now, on some of the retroactive stuff, that may be difficult, but when they say, hey, the law applies a month from now, it'd be nice to have your affairs in order so you're not scrambling around trying to get something. Because there's one thing that I've said before, it's you can't buy insurance after your house is burned down. Once there's a problem, it's too late. Or at the very least, you know, you won't have enough time to get the insurance in place before you need it. So for me, what we talk about here, there is a plan A aspect, there is a plan B aspect. There are both, and you can pick and choose which elements best serve you. But from my perspective, the real issue here that applies to everyone is, how do you have sound diversification, okay? Again, based on the principle, you know, you're not putting all your money into one, you know, gold mining stock. Maybe if you own the company, that's the basis for your net worth. But for anyone else, you want a little bit here, you want a little bit there, you want to do this. And so it's the same thing with what we talk about. Okay, could there be a problem with the US dollar? Now, the US dollar doesn't have to collapse to zero, but hey, it could have a 10% drop against other currencies, or against Bitcoin, or against gold, or whatever. So have some Bitcoin, have some gold, have some, you know, if you're going to hold fiat currencies because you're doing transactions, maybe you want to put some of that money in another currency, the Singapore dollar, for example, okay? Well, you can't get Singapore dollars in Bank of America, so you need to go to a bank that offers Singapore dollars, right? What if, you know, people say, well, what if the U.S. real estate market melts down? Or what if the Canadian market, that's so overheated, what if it drops? Okay, well, why not diversify into other currencies and other markets, right? I'm not saying sell everything you have in Canada or the U.S., but I'm saying have a little bit in different baskets, and have a little bit in baskets that are more and less correlated to the world economy. You look at a market like a Cambodia or other frontier markets, generally a lot less correlated and a lot less prone to recession versus a much more developed market. On the other hand, you might want some more stable markets in your portfolio as well. So this stuff applies to everyone. Just because the tax stuff doesn't necessarily apply to you, number one, doesn't mean it won't in the future, and it's not. It's a good idea to have a safety blanket. It's a good idea to have a, in case of fire, break glass option. But there are so many other reasons that people should be doing this stuff. It's never just one piece. That's what I've learned in 13 years of doing this. It's never just one piece of the puzzle. They all work together. The bank account facilitates the currency swap, facilitates the residency, facilitates the passport, and on and on and on and on. This stuff works together. Everyone can benefit from this. It's just sound diversification. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.